People need an income that's guaranteed to them.
If you lose money to taxes, you're never getting that money back.
You need to get serious about adding some lower risk.
Greed. I don't like greed.
The thing to be afraid of, honestly, is the thing that we're not thinking of, the black swan event.
There's a tsunami coming. Bye.
Welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Just coffee talk.
There's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter. Who do you listen to? Who do you not listen to? You have to stay focused.
A fun and informative look at the issues of wealth, retirement, and protecting your life savings.
These advisors out there that were trained to sell, and have all these fees. They don't want to talk about this product, so they make less money.
And now, Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Hello again and welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. My name is Randy Cook. I'm here each week with Charisse as we talk through some of the headlines, but really the headlines in your life. What's going on with you when you think about your retirement? Are you scared? Are you concerned? Are you worried? Are you excited? How's the money situation going? How are you going to get paid in retirement? And that is what we talk about in this show. And if you need some help along the way, Charisse is here. Charisse, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Just got off that TPC Sawgrass golf course with Tim Tebow and Gary Sheffield, who I got to golf with for the Tim Tebow Foundation Gala and Celebrity Golf Scramble. And it was freezing cold and the winds were gusting like 30 miles an hour. But I'm going to tell you, I would have went into the clubhouse on my final 4 holes because it was so cold. And everybody's like, we're playing TPC. We don't do that.
Yeah.
And even my daughter who was with us, she's like, yeah, Mom, what are you thinking? I'm like, okay, I'm getting older. Just give me a warm blanket. I was freezing.
Right.
But it was fun. We raised a lot of money.
Did you make the green on 17? The one over the water?
I actually didn't hit that hole.
Okay.
I was frozen. I was frozen. Like I had no right playing that day. So I forfeited a lot. I was just trying to stay warm. I had to get a sweater to wrap around my legs. I'm telling you, it was cold. It was freezing out there.
There was one time when Charisse and I were out and she got to that point and she was like, I'm going to the cart. I'm getting a blanket. You guys have fun.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I have no shame in that game. But the whole purpose was to raise money for trafficking and Night to Shine and kids and all the stuff Tim Tebow does, which is fantastic. And they did, it was their biggest year yet. And it was just honored to be there and help them the way I could. So,
all right.
Fun times.
Well, we are here to sit down and talk about you and your money. And your money has been bouncing up and down lately, hasn't it? Yeah. The stock market has been kind of interesting lately. And it's doing its thing, as we always say. And I got a story here about how you might really be having a struggle with this right now. The people at Fidelity say that last year in the fourth quarter, over 600,000 people passed the million mark in their 401k. Now, remember what the market was doing at that time. Now, the market has gone down quite a bit. The article that I read said people who make that transition over to 7 figures really are going to struggle through the next period of volatility. And that's where we are right now. There's a lot of people that are looking at that going, oh, I had $1 million. Now I don't. And it's psychological. And they say a lot of those people will probably say, okay, that's it. I made my number. I'm going to cash. Or I'm just taking all my risk off the table. Charisse, have you been getting calls from people who are worried about the market? Do you see a little bit of a panic going on? How can we help with this?
Yeah, there's a lot of new people that have been calling us that want to come in for a first appointment, just asking about, war. Should I move my account? Am I too risky? We've had a couple of clients that are brand new to us that have called us. What do we think? Is this something we have to worry about? So there's a lot of tension out there on the stock market. And this is, volatility is going to be volatility. When there's war, there's missiles, or even when TSA goes wrong. It doesn't matter what the noise is. Markets go down eventually. They don't always go up. And we always talk about, we're chasing this tail of the rocket ship, but eventually we're going to get burned. And right now we're not sure if this is a long-term burn or a short-term burn, right? I do know that what we do here is we protect money, we grow money, and we just want to make sure our income streams are not part of the ups and downs of the stock market. We want you to be able to take your income every month, whether the stock market is going down or going up. And so that's the difference of working with, the stock jock versus that retirement planner that focuses on the stock jock's job, but also the income plan and the withdrawal strategy. So people are nervous, especially if they're nearing retirement. So let's just say you're about to retire this year and you're like, I got my accounts up to $1 million last year, and now it's down to 950,000. And then maybe if you're taking a lot of risk, very well could be down 900,000. Now, if the market keeps going down, are you going to be able to retire at the end of the year if this is the year you're going to retire? Because most people say, I'm not going to retire until I get to $1 million. And for those people that are out there thinking about that right now, this is that time to be coming in and talking to us about the volatility, because you're in the final hour. You're on that 5-yard line, right? And are you going to throw that ball in? Are you going to run it in? And Tim Tebow would keep it close. He would run it in and score that touchdown. And this is not the time to take the risk, especially if you're retiring. And people actually don't realize that. They think like that final hour, I got to be the riskiest. They get to that million or a little bit higher. And that's not the case. And then we do talk about that, Randy, from time to time, and it's valuable information. So stock markets will go back up. Yep. Do we know when? No, we don't know when. But I would certainly recommend that you come in and see it so we can see how much risk you can take. Are you in that type of portfolio right now? You're about to retire in a year or two, that you could actually lose 30, 40, or maybe even 50%. Do you even know? I'm going to tell you this much. If you have $1 million and now you're down to $900,000, you're likely one of those individuals that could lose 40 to 50% in your portfolio. Yeah. And so you need to know that. Now, if you're down to 950,000, maybe you lose half that amount. Maybe you can only drop to 25 or 30%, but still, if you're living on your income in retirement from that account, Houston, you have a problem. If you're about to retire and you're going to find yourself working longer, that's not a stress-free, happy moment to be in. So come in, we'll build out your income plans. We'll show you the stress test of what your accounts could potentially drop down to, that roller coaster ride when it comes all the way down. What does it look like? Really do an analyzation of your plan, because that close, I don't know how you guys are doing that alone and how you even feel confident about retiring, especially with all this noise out there today.
This is one of those moments, I think, that for people who are getting ready for retirement, this is a real lesson. This is a real kind of an opening to how you actually feel about the market and risk. And for those of you who are in retirement right now, I always say, one of the reasons to bring Charisse into your financial life is you don't want to be 73, 74 years old, and all of a sudden something happens. You go, what happened? I didn't see this coming. These are the kind of meetings where we can look at things and say, this is what could happen 5 years from now. You don't want to be there. And for those of you who are getting ready for retirement, who are really nervous, you lose money, and it's really getting to you. It's got a big old pit in your stomach. This is a lesson to you saying you're probably too far out on that risk scale. Let's get a meeting to talk about that. Let's sit down. We'll do that complimentary retirement consultation. That's a free meeting to sit down with you and talk about what you've done for retirement, all the saving that you've done, and what does that mean for you in retirement. And if we have another one of these big market pullbacks, what does that mean for you? Can we guard against that? Give Charisse a call. Take a look at the website. Let's make that appointment. Get a date on a calendar. ZinniaWealth.com is the website. ZINNIA Wealth.com. There's a gold box that says complimentary retirement consultation. Click on that. You'll be on your way. Or just bypass all that. Give her a call. It's 833-368-3680. Again, 833-368-3680. Well, we talk about, how much you have. Now you want to know, how much can I spend? Those are the big questions in retirement. So I've got an article here. It talks about a study that was done by the people at Schroders, and it said a lot of people want $3,000 a month or $5,000 a month. And then they look at Charisse and say, how can you make that happen? So according to this, they figured Social Security into this. One Social Security payment, not two, but just one. And they said, if you wanted $3,000 a month, you would probably have to have $300,000 to make that amount of money. If you wanted $5,000 a month to spend, you would probably need $880,000 in order to make that happen. So, Sharice, I wanted to ask you, does that look right? I mean, are those the kind of numbers that you're working with, or are those out of whack? What do you see there?
Yeah, so if you need $3,000 a month and $1,500 is coming from Social Security, then $1,500 on $300,000 is reasonable, depending on how you build out your plan.
Okay.
I would say you would need a little bit more saved, to be honest with you, if you wanted, especially if you have your money in the market, because if you had your money in the stock market, you couldn't touch it when the market was going down and while it was going up. So if it went down for 2 years, you couldn't touch it. When it went up for 4 or 5 years, if that was the case, based on history, then you can't touch it.
Got it.
So this is why you should save a little bit more, because you want to have cash flow elsewhere, still making money conservatively that wasn't part of the stock market. So you can pull more from then during those times. Now, if you need $5,000 a month and you have $2,000 a month, which is $24,000 a year, which is nearly half of that $5,000, then I would say $800,000 would be acceptable, right? Because we follow this rule, and it's not a real rule, but it's a baseline rule called the 4% rule. And the 4% rule says, don't take more than 4% out of your portfolio. You should never run out of money. You might not have much money later, but you might not run out of money. That's the rule, right? And markets are different than they used to be. They could react differently, faster or slower when the markets go down and they have recovery. So we don't know what the future is going to look like. So it all depends on your Social Security check. And Randy, it's not cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be a little bit different, right? Just depending on where, if you have $3,000 in Social Security and then you only need to pull the remaining $2,000 a month from $880,000, I mean, you could actually live on more of your money. So there's some math and inventory that has to be applied to this plan. So it's not cookie cutter, but yeah, if you need $5,000 a month and $2,500 is coming from Social Security and the rest is coming from $880, I'd say you have more than enough saved and you can probably take more. But remember, this is not advice. This is just concept, and we want you to come in and see us so we can build out that plan. I'm going to give you an example. Somebody came in just the other day, last week, and said, Sharice, I've been working with this advisor for years, and oh gosh, we've lost 10% and the stock market's down. And, he just says, hey, when you're ready to take income, let me know. But he won't build out an income plan. He won't show me anything. And this is why we're here today, because I want you to show me what you're talking about on radio. I want to show you an income plan with inflation and when to take Social Security. And I just called the advisor the other day, and he said, hey, just let me know when you take income. We'll just start taking, 4 or 5% a year out. And that was it.
Okay.
And she's like, it doesn't make me feel good. Like there's no plan. I can't see the future of it. And she's like, I get what you're saying and what you do and the value of it, because I'm stressed out when I have that other conversation with you, and what I hear, I'm already at ease. So again, you pay for what you get, and you need to know what you're getting, right? Are you getting somebody who's going to manage and appropriate monies in different, buckets, or is it just a 60-40 portfolio? So you got to weigh out the options.
I think this is a really good example of some of the different financial headlines that you see these things and you go, is that true? Well, the only way to know if that's true for you is to come in and do the math on your retirement, as we always say. A couple of years ago, I remember you and I did a story that it said for every $1,000 that you need per month, you need to save $250,000. So that would be even more than what this particular study says. So there's a lot of different formulas out there. I mean, we can cite them all day long, the 4% rule and all the different things that they talk about in financial media, but what good is it if you don't know what your numbers are? And that's the key here. It is, you can use some of this stuff as a baseline, as Sharice just said, but let's do your numbers. Give Sharice a call and the team at Zinnia Wealth. It's 833-368-3680. 833-368-3680, or use the website, which is zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. There's a gold box there. It says complimentary retirement consultation. Click on that. We'll ask you to put some information there, and our team will reach out to you. Okay, so this person wrote in to one of those Ask the Advisor columns, says, I did the math, and I'm going to get $1.5 million from Social Security. And I say, pause, full stop. How is that possible? All right, Sharice, how is that math possible? Is this guy telling the truth, or is he exaggerating here?
Well, if you collect a $5,000 a month Social Security check over 25 years, and yeah, he'll get his 1.5 million. He just has to live long enough to get it, right?
How many people that you see have a $5,000 a month Social Security payment?
In 20 years, one. I had one.
Okay. All right.
So, and my question to this point is, he must have to wait till he's 70 to get it.
Yeah.
So, you got to have your health. We always have to check our health, right? And sure, it makes sense if you have a spouse, because women certainly tend to live, 7 to 8, 10 years longer, because they'll receive that check, basically, if you pass away, as long as their check is not higher. And so there's some value there, just depending, you have to just figure out longevity. And of course, we never know when we're going to take our last breath. But if you have a spouse who will keep collecting it, very well could be a good plan if you had to wait till age 70 to collect it. But yeah, 1.5 million, it's a lot of money.
So
that's what
happen.
Social Security is for. It can happen.
Okay.
He's got to live long enough.
All right. So if I were, let's take the words Social Security out of it for just a second here. If I had an asset, a pot of money, a place where I had $1.5 million, I would want some management of that money. I would want to treat that money like gold. I would want to make sure I'm using this money correctly.
Right.
Do people do that with Social Security? It seems as though they just look at that and say, "This is coming. I'm gonna get it," and they file for Social Security and probably don't think a lot of strategy here about it, and they're not treating it like an investment. It's a little different because it's not in one big pot. It comes to you once per month. So how do we talk about treating Social Security like maybe our biggest retirement asset?
Yes. So one of the missing elements to retirement is people not planning well enough for Social Security. Knowing the withdrawal strategy on your dollars, and should we take some of those dollars first, delay Social Security, or should we actually take Social Security first and not take as much out of our assets? And a lot of that has to do with longevity, what inflation is going to look like in the future, how much you've had saved, do we have other income streams coming in? So people really do fail trying to strategize for Social Security because it's a big pot of money. And if you do it right, and then you live the years we think you could potentially live, you want to get it right, because once you start it, it's really hard to undo it. You have 12 months to change your mind and pay it back. And most people don't. Yeah. And especially and when we build the income plans, we show you your Social Security. What if you take it at 62? What does your asset look like conceptually, in 30 years? Like, how much is left over for beneficiaries pessimistically? And I'm like, well, what if we collected at 67 and we lived on some of our asset now? What does it look like? Or what if we even waited to age 70, lived off our assets we had saved for maybe the next 8 years instead of collecting Social Security, or 5 years, whatever it might be. And then what does the asset look like? So now you can make a better decision on collecting Social Security based on what potentially your asset could look like. And people don't think of it like that. They just think, hey, my asset that I have saved, let's say I have $1 million, going to be way higher in 30 years because if I collect Social Security now. But that's not always true when we do the math. When you get bigger checks later and you live on some of your asset now, sometimes it's flip-flop. Sometimes it's better to do it that way. And it always gets me because I actually don't always know. And so I let the math and the income plan tell us. And I'm like, oh, I would have got that wrong. So how does any advisor advise you without actually building it out and showing it to you? They don't. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's a dog and pony show out there. Yeah, collect Social Security now, because if you do that now, you don't have to take as much out of your assets. Of course they don't. Therefore, the advisor gets paid more because less money is coming out of their account. So of course they're going to push that direction, yet they have zero clue. And this is why it's important to work with a retirement planner and the season of life, 5 years, especially before you go into retirement and throughout retirement, because we look at things differently. And not all retirement planners are created equal. We just happen to do all pillars of retirement planning, from your investment plan, your income plan, your tax plan, your healthcare plan, like how are we going to pay for long-term care if we need it, all the way to your legacy and estate plan. So we focus on 5 of the pillars. And most advisors focus on 1 of the 5 of those pillars, which is really important for you, especially if you're just trying to figure out a well-oiled plan and you're retiring or retired.
Well, what I hear, you can look this up online, and I think this is becoming a theme of our show today. You see things in the financial media, or you Google something as you're getting toward retirement, and this is the kind of stuff that you're going to get. One person will say, hey, you can't pass on your Social Security, so take it at 62. You can pass on your IRA. That makes sense. Okay. If you take it at 62, you're going to burden your spouse with that particular payment for the rest of her life. That makes sense. The longer you wait, the bigger your check. That makes sense. I mean, there's so much, Charisse, it'll blow your mind trying to do all this. But what you said at the very beginning, I think is absolutely the key. And that is, let's not just look at $2,300 a month, $3,000 a month. Yeah. Let's look at how it fits in with the rest of your assets, with the rest of your retirement plan. And it's an element of your retirement plan. It's not all of your retirement plan. And I think when you look at it like that, I think it's probably more strategic.
Yes. So look at the full picture. Look at the income, the inflation, the taxes, the healthcare costs. Look at everything, because it's not cookie cutter, and the unexpected expenses from teeth that people forget about, and grandkids needing money. Grandma, grandpa, I need a loan. There's so many pieces in retirement, and I don't want you to go alone trying to figure it out. It's all math, and we love doing math. That's what we get paid to do, and try to keep our emotions down and the strategy strong, and build that trust with people. And I think you can't go wrong. If you're still working and you're past the age of 62, there's a temptation in there to say, why don't I just take my Social Security, give myself a big raise? Well, there's some problems with that, too. There's some taxes that go along with it. If you don't wait to your full retirement age, there's some problems there as well. So let's have a great strategy for your retirement and make that Social Security decision a part of that strategy. Give Charisse a call. Take us up on that complimentary retirement consultation. That's a big word for, how about a free meeting? Let's sit down and talk about your retirement and say, let's look at what you've saved. Let's look what you want to do. Let's see if you're in for any troubles as far as taxes, and if you're worried about long-term care and health care and all that goes along with it. There's so many different things to discuss when it comes to your retirement. Let's get it all out on the table and talk about a strategic plan for your retirement. Give Charisse a call, 833-368-3680. 833-368-3680, or use the website, which is ZinniaWealth.com, ZINNIA Wealth.com, and click on that gold box. You'll be on your way. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we have a special guest in the studio today, Curtis Wynn, who is the CEO of Seco Energy. We're going to talk a little bit about your utility bills. We've heard a lot about how they're bringing data centers in, and boy, they suck energy like crazy, and that's going to make our power bills go up. We've seen inflation make our power bills go up. Let's talk a little bit about that and what Seco's doing to try to help. That's coming up on Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Saving money is hard, but what's worse is when you save all year, hoping to use the money for a nice vacation. Then your AC unit dies and that money is gone. Now imagine yourself in retirement. You've saved a nice amount, hoping to use it for fun, but every time you take money out of your 401k, you get hammered in taxes. It's a sad fact, but your number one expense in retirement may not be cruises and trips. It could be taxes. At Zinnia Wealth Management, we believe in keeping more of your money where it belongs, with you. Using our specialized software, Charisse Rivers and her team can show you how to minimize taxes for your future. It's like giving yourself a raise in retirement. So why not take a tax break instead of a tax hit? Call Charisse Rivers today, 833-368-3680. That's 833-368-3680. Or online at ZinniaWealth.com. That's ZINNIA Wealth.com.
Welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. One of the things that we believe is very important is to have a local financial advisor, somebody who lives here and cares about our area. So occasionally, Charisse will bring in a person to talk about that, and our guest today is going to talk a little bit about the future of Marion County. Charisse, take it away.
Today, I'm excited to welcome Curtis Wynn, the CEO of Seco Energy. Curtis leads one of the largest electric cooperatives in the country, serving hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses across Central Florida. Under his leadership, Seco continues to focus on reliability, innovation, and serving the community with excellence. Curtis, thank you for joining us today.
Sharice, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
I know. I get to be with you a couple times a month, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
We get to be, we're both on a board.
Yep.
And it's been fun getting to know you. But today we're going to talk about the inflation and costs of electricity, infrastructure, data centers, artificial intelligence, and all this stuff that you're trying to manage and re-innovate because there's some problems on the horizons. And I know a lot of the locals are going to want to hear about this.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about you and how you got started with Seco.
Yeah, well, I've been at Seco's for about 4 years. Came here from North Carolina, been in the business for a long time. I was CEO of a cooperative in North Carolina for 24 years, and I got the call here in 2021. It's been a great ride. It doesn't seem like it's been 4 years, but Seco is a very interesting electric cooperative, one of about 800 across the nation in terms of distribution electric cooperatives. We are a little bit different. As cooperatives, we do the same thing as our investor-owned utilities like Duke Energy or Florida Power and Light, and our municipally owned utilities that we have across some of the towns here in the region. We just provide central station electricity. I've been very intrigued by what's happening here in the region in terms of growth and infrastructure and even the glimpse of some data centers. So I'm truly excited to have this conversation today to talk about the topics that you want to cover today.
A lot of my clients are retired, are getting ready to retire.
Right.
Sharice, just make sure our investments keep up with inflation. But
yes.
When electric bills go up 20% over a few years, that's a higher than typical inflation rate. Can you tell us why electricity and the electric bills have gotten so sky high?
Yeah. So if you go back over the last 10 years, you would see that the rising cost of electricity was not in second place as it is now. Today, it is in second place next to gasoline that we buy at the pump. And when I came, we were right on the eve of right in the middle of COVID. And at that time, we were having a lot of inflationary pressure with buying materials, goods to produce electricity. As you probably know or may not know, that the electric utility industry is a very capital-intensive business. Building substations, building the infrastructure that's necessary to keep the power flowing is very capital intensive. So with inflation, just to buy the material to run these organizations and to maintain these organizations, that was a driver. Now, over the last 2 years, yes, the cost of electricity has risen quite a bit. And the other piece that has driven the cost is what it takes to generate electricity, fuel. Whether it's coal, natural gas, there's a lot of volatility in that market. A few years ago, we were seeing fuel prices go sky high, and that was reflected on electric bills because it is a variable that we have to deal with. And when that cost of fuel to produce electricity goes up, so does the cost of electricity at the retail level where we provide it. The third piece is just really a function of supply and demand. And we're going to talk about demand and the demand for the product. Here in Central Florida, we're growing. This is a fast-growing area. But on top of that, we have a lot of additional uses of electricity, like electric vehicles. We have the onslaught of data centers to drive the artificial intelligence that we'll dig into a little bit more. So supply and demand. The supply for the product is lagging with the demand, so that's just the basic economics, and the growth, and then in particular, that's the cost of material and goods that it takes to actually operate and run a utility.
Is this more a Florida issue or across the country?
It is actually across the country. It's not, Florida is not unique. Just in general, across the nation, we're seeing the same types of increases and inflationary pressures that we're seeing here in Florida.
You know, you did a presentation. You have a way of making things very simplified. And one thing that never dawned on me is that you said, you know, we are unique here in Florida because we can only pull energy in two directions, north and south, but really from the north.
Right.
Because the east and west, it's all coastal, where all the other states can go north, south, east, and west.
Yes.
Is that also troubling when it comes to the cost of electricity in Florida too?
Well, your options are limited. And when we're on a peninsula, and you said energy, and I'm glad you said energy, because it's not just the transmission facilities to bring electric power to the region. It's also the fuel that it takes to generate electricity, the pipelines for natural gas. They have that same characteristic. There's one way in, and there's not as many options to pull natural gas into this region. So your options are fewer. And that is a factor because we are in a peninsular state and we have this limited ability to go to other options to purchase the things that we need to generate electricity.
It never dawned on me how hard that was. And so you're pulling energy. How far up north do you pull energy from to bring it down here?
We use two major forms. One is natural gas, and much of that comes from Louisiana.
Gosh.
That is probably the primary area where we pull from some of the natural gas availability that's in that region, and we go as far north as some of the southern or midwestern states to bring energy into the region.
That is amazing to me. See, I know nothing about energy and electricity until I met you, and now it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Future projections. What does this mean for just the average person who's just trying to pay at the gas pump and their electric bill and the food bill?
I wish I could say that it was going to level out, but from what we see now is just the mere fact that demand is increasing. It doesn't help that we've got a conflict that's going on right now with a big portion of the supply of fuel, and that could very well impact the cost of things as relates to fuel prices to get things moving and this to do the job that we have to do to generate electricity and distribute electricity. So if I had a crystal ball, I'd tell you, but I'm going to just take the safe route and say that I don't see it making a turn or getting better.
Well, the inflation is definitely an affordability issue for, whether you're retiring or not retiring.
Right.
So it's always a big concern for everyone. I want to lead right into infrastructure. SECO, the infrastructure, what does that mean for the people locally? How does it hurt them? How's it going to help them in the long run?
Sure. So let's go back. Can I go back to affordability?
Yes.
Because the price of the product is increasing, but most utilities, and especially SECO Energy, we are very intentional about helping our members, many of whom fall into that category, who are in those retirement years where they've got their plans already set. They know what their budget is. So when there's inflationary pressure, we think there's also a higher need for a greater need for our members. We call our customers members at an electric cooperative to conserve energy and to find ways to reduce the consumption of energy and still maintain the comfort level that they deserve to have in their homes. So there are a lot of things on our website that can help with energy efficiency tips. We're putting in programs to engage with our members who are also the owners of our utility to help us reduce that cost by just paying attention to things like the time of day that you use some of those high consumption appliances in your home.
Okay.
Those things can help SECO reduce its costs. And then in turn, that can help reduce some of the inflationary pressures that we're getting from all of these things that we've talked about. So I want to make sure that the audience understands that there is an effort on the utilities part to help level out some of these inflationary pressures. And we also realize that it's not just your utility bill, the price of grocery, the price of medicine, everything is putting a lot of pressure on our members. And we take that very seriously as a utility, and we want to make sure we do everything that we can to help them reduce that cost.
Thanks for explaining that. Is there a time of day that is best to conserve? I mean, I guess midday, right? But I don't really know.
Yeah, we don't think about it as just general, regular consumers of the product, but there is a time of day that is best, especially on the extremely hot and extremely cold days. Habitually, as consumers, one of the peak times of the day in the wintertime is in the morning. Because guess what's happening? We're all waking up, we're all washing our hair, we're drying our hair, we might be throwing in a load of clothes that can be ready when we get home.
I did all those things this morning.
I'm guilty of it too. As someone who's in the business, I find myself early in the morning. Okay. So to specifically answer your question, the busiest time and the highest demand for electricity is early in the morning, say from 5 o'clock in the morning up until about 8 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. We call that the peak time of the day. So there's a huge demand for the product. And then we get home in the afternoons, probably from 4 o'clock until 8 o'clock in the summertime. You know, the kids are getting out of school. We're keeping ourselves comfortable. So if, as a consumer, we can just be cognizant of those 2 times of the day, those 2 periods of the day, and shift some of that consumption to times outside of those 2 time periods, it does save energy. Yeah. As a matter of fact, we have incentives for our members to do that by way of rebates if they reduce that consumption during those really? High peak times. Yeah, such as allowing us to help adjust your thermostat during those times. So the simple program we have, the Smart Connect program, and it allows us to, let's just say this afternoon, as a matter of fact, we know we're going to hit a peak we're starting around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's going to last until probably 6 or 7 tonight. To keep the comfort in your home where you want it, leading up to that, we can get your house a little bit cooler so that we can reduce the use of that HVAC system during those peak times, which, as a matter of fact, that HVAC system is one of the highest consumers of electricity in your home. Okay. So if we can avoid using that at full blast during that peak time, it's helping us reduce that high demand, which in turn costs us more to produce power during that time.
During that time, did the dollars and cents go up too during that consumption hours, those few hours, or is it the same price across the board all day?
It is typically the same price across the board. Now, some utilities can introduce what is called a time of day rate, which will incentivize them to not use electricity during that peak time. And it would, in fact, Sharice, charge more during that peak time if you use energy, but it charges you a lot less. So just say if your average per kilowatt hour charge is 12 cents per kilowatt hour, the utility could, for example, charge 6 cents if you use electricity off peak. Mm-hmm. But if you go into that peak time, because you're getting that incentive, it might charge you 20 cents per kilowatt hour if you use on peak. Okay. And that's to help pattern the behavior to use less electricity during those high peak times.
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea. But you guys don't do that yet.
We offer that rate, but it's voluntary. Oh. So it's not enforced upon the members, so they can voluntarily get on a time of use rate and condition their days, especially someone who may be retired. They might decide, well, from 4 to 6, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to do a physical activity outside or go to one of the recreation centers or something. So it is available, but it's not enforced.
So if they don't have a time of day rate, what is the cost?
Typically 12 to 14 cents in that range. Okay. Typically ours is, I think, about 13 cents per kilowatt hour.
That time of day rate seems to make a lot of sense.
It does. And
like a dinner party.
It does. And I think the devil is always in the details, right? And I think where you have to be very disciplined is to make sure you stay off that during that time, because the penalty could be pretty steep, and that could cause a bill shock just in itself.
Don't walk out the door forgetting to turn off the lights.
Exactly. Or make sure you got a smart app on your phone that you can control those things when you leave.
So just as a reminder to our listeners, we have Curtis Wynn, the CEO of Seco Energy, here talking about inflation and the cost of energy today and where we're pulling energy from, and artificial intelligence here soon and data centers. So stay tuned. But you can always check them out at www.secoenergy.com.
Yes.
And you can find all this information he's talking about there.
Yep. So infrastructure, first of all, you start with the generation, how you generate power. Mm-hmm. And that's the G. And then that's done at a power plant. Probably the closest one to us is up in Palatka. They generate power using either natural gas or coal or solar, some source of energy to produce the power. Okay. Then it has to get closer to us. So the other piece of the infrastructure puzzle is transmission. And we see those lines. They're large towers that have the transmission lines. They have a lot of clearance on both sides so that you can move them across many miles of line. That's the T. That's the transmission part of it. That transmission facility brings it to a place where SECO begins to take ownership. And that's at the substations where the distribution system takes over. And that infrastructure from there is what we do at SECO Energy. We bring power from that transmission facility to our substations. Once it gets there, we own it.
Okay.
And we take it out to your homes and businesses like we are here today. So those are the three major components of infrastructure: G, T, and D: generation, transmission, and distribution.
That's actually pretty helpful for me to understand. Since we are pulling energy and borrowing energy from other companies and other states, do we build another, I don't think substation, but a power plant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Yes.
Because that would probably preserve the cost, I assume, because we get the energy flowing a little bit more efficiently.
Yeah, and we do studies every year to look at what is our current level of supply that we have available versus what is the anticipated demand for that power. And it's a very long process. When we see that we're getting close to needing more generation and transmission resources, we look at that on normally a 10 to 20 year horizon. Because the time in which it takes to build one of those power plants can be 5, 6, 7 years to get permitted to be in running condition. So we anticipate that, and that's very costly. The typical power plant that we talk about is probably in excess of $1 billion to build one of those.
Where do you guys get that money?
Well, we have to have access to capital. It's just like any other business. We have banks. We have the Rural Utility Services under the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which helps to finance projects for co-ops. But ultimately, the unique thing about electric co-ops is ultimately every investment we make is on the shoulders of our consumers, our members.
Okay.
Whether we take out a large intensive capital loan, but eventually we have to pay it, but that comes through the rates. And we use those dollars to pay off those debts.
Got it.
So it's all about the member, and we are very careful to make sure we make smart investments.
That's good. That's good. Got to pay attention to those P&Ls every month.
Yes, you do. Very much so.
So I wanted to kind of jump over to something that I think just incredibly important that I didn't know that you guys had. You guys have your own foundation.
Right.
And it's funds provided for the community. It helps entities in our community for affordability issues. I'm not really sure in great detail what that means, but I'm sure people would love to know about it.
Yeah. So in 2022, SECO Energy, we established a 501c3 foundation, which is a subcomponent but separate part of SECO Energy. And we set up some pretty strict guidelines in terms of how that works. First of all, how do we source it? How do we fund it?
Right.
It's very simple. Members have the option to round up their electric bill to the next dollar. You see this in a lot of places. I mean, you have restaurants that will give you that option when you check out. So you round it up and they're going to place that extra change, the difference between the actual costs and that
Great
next
idea.
dollar. So it ranges on average about 46 cents per month. Our members volunteer to round up their bills. So we take that extra change and we place it into the foundation.
Wow.
And that foundation, and I have some numbers here, that foundation year to date or life to date has accumulated almost $4 million in contributions.
Wow.
Since
From rounding
2022,
up.
just from rounding up.
Fantastic.
You have to keep in mind, we have 200,000 plus member consumers who are participating. So they do that. On average, it costs them about $6 and some change per year, about 46 cents per month on average. And it goes into the foundation. The foundation has a board that's separate from the SECO Energy Board that governs that helps determine where the distribution goes. And these are the areas that we fund: educational STEM projects, environmental projects, energy-related projects, veterans initiatives, public safety programs, and health and human services type programs.
Wow.
Now, these are all community-based organizations that fall into these different categories. They have to be a 501c3. and they can apply it's on our line. Actually, we have the Seco Energy Foundation has its own website. It can be found. I think it's secoenergyfoundation.com.
So if you are a 501c3 and you fall in these categories, you can apply for some sort of affordability there.
Right.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. So we have the foundation, and we also work, when we set up the foundation, one of the major questions was, well, can't we use foundation money to directly assist members with their affordability issues? And the answer came out legally, we can't. So it's almost like being self-serving, if you will.
Right.
So legally we couldn't do that. But in addition to the foundation, now we have a lot of other organizations within the region who do provide direct support for energy specific bill assistance for members. And we have that whole list of those entities. When a member comes in with a real affordability issue, trouble paying their bill, we refer them to those entities. Now, for the more community-related support organizations like the ones in these categories, that is something that someone who could directly, or an entity who could directly apply to the foundation, as you mentioned, for assistance.
Well, I think that's fantastic. So that just continues to grow,
right,
and make interest, and the interest and probably some of the growth gets passed on, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I do encourage entities that may be listening to check this out, because we have distributed to date, just to give another number, just over $2 million in
Since
distributions since 2022.
Wow, fantastic. All right, there. If you guys hear that and you are a 501c3 or entity, secofoundation.org is where you go if you want to apply for funding based on some of the criteria. All right, so we really want to jump into, people are hungry to know about data centers maybe coming to our area, artificial intelligence. There's something you said to me a month ago or so, and it made me nervous. And you said, if things don't change in our power and energy world, 5 years from now, there's not going to be enough energy to power the United States. That is a serious comment. And I would like you to kind of go into depth what you mean by that. Because earlier you're talking about, the electric cars, and it's taking more energy, which, we got to have more fuel to power up that energy. So enlighten us.
Sure. I'll give you an example. I don't want to get too technical here, but this will really help to understand. If we were to meet the demand that comes to us almost on a daily basis or monthly basis, we have requests from hyperscalers. There's a term called hyperscale data centers. Those are just large data centers who are driving AI, some of the Googles of the world. They are requesting data centers that could require 1 gigawatt of electricity. So what does that mean? That means that is just below the entire capacity for Seco Energy as a utility as a whole, for which it took 85 plus years to get to.
Wow.
So in one account, that is the request. Now, we do studies. We're responsible. We can't just arbitrarily build capacity like that. It would take years. I think anywhere ranging from 7 to 10 years to build that capacity. And the other thing is that many of the requests that we're seeing are saying we want that in 2 years at max.
Right, of course.
Not going to happen. But let me say to the audience this. We, and me personally as CEO of Seco Energy and the board of Seco Energy, is completely committed to make sure that we have the power that our members need. And we would not take on a commitment that would jeopardize that. So as these inquiries come, what we're saying is, before we start spending Seco, I mentioned earlier that every dime, quarter we get is on the backs of our members, right? So before we start spending those resources, we're requiring that the inquirer, for us to really do a serious assessment of their request, they have to put up a deposit, or actually a fee. It's not even a deposit. It's the fee that's going to take care of the engineering costs for us to do a study to get on the pathway to get them the power that they need. So we don't say no. We just give the facts of what it would take and how long it would take. And to the members and to the other customers out there who are concerned about that, I think most utilities are following that same pattern to make sure that there's a feasibility study on the front end that says, here's what it's going to take to generate, transmit. Remember, we talked about the resources to generate, transmit, and distribute.
Yeah.
A gigawatt of power is going to take this to do it. Are you willing, customer, investor, to put up the cost to do that?
Because that's $1 billion.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if all that aligns, we are obligated to serve as a utility. We start the process, but they have to put up that commitment. And my point is very clear. We do not in any way plan to jeopardize the reliability that we've worked so hard to create and the cost structure that we try to maintain on a daily basis, all to create the resources to serve one member or one customer.
One Google. Yep.
One Google. Yeah. And I want to be clear about that.
Yeah, that's great.
So and what I also mentioned is that, there are other ways to do this, and we're looking at other ways. I won't get into all of the details that we covered in our conversation, but there are better ways to do it than to take that gamble and try to supply a hyperscale data center.
Right.
Maybe that's a conversation for another.
Yeah, that's
time.
a whole big conversation. Well, you lead the pack. I think you're ahead of the curve when we're looking at CEOs of companies and thinking outside the box. I know we talked about modular data centers. That's a conversation piece happening around the country right now.
Right.
How to ease the pain for the Googles and the Microsofts and the NVIDIAs out there in our world. But right now, we have to shut that down, that conversation, because there is not a way, or the United States won't have electricity in 5 years if we were to go there.
And I know, I don't think any responsible person in my place would ever allow that to happen. They would make sure that if additional resources are needed, that they are provided in a very responsible manner without jeopardizing the reliability of the service that people have come to enjoy.
What if Central Florida, half the cars turn into electric cars?
Right.
How does that hurt us and the electric bills?
Well, it's a function of planning, right? So,
do we have the capacity of 5 years from now, based on our power plants and substations, could we do it? Or do we have to start building now? Because what if that were to happen?
Yeah, if that were to happen, doesn't seem like it, but it was probably 5 years ago when this concept
that was supposed to happen.
First birth. And
were we even ready then?
We weren't. If it had happened right then, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think it would take a lot of planning to do that. Where do you place those charging stations?
Right.
Going back to the same example I gave about the time of use rate for the everyday consumer.
Yeah.
You would have sort of like the Uber model of what the pricing would be. So if someone wants to charge on peak.
But it doesn't get pushed off to the people who are paying their electric bill. So
right. You'd have to set up a rate structure and that's how we do rates, by the way.
Okay.
We set up rates, different classes of rates, so that we capture the costs of that individual class of consumers. So EV charging would probably fall into its own class where we would make sure we set up a rate structure that guarantees that we capture the cost of all of those vehicles charging and recharging at certain times of the day.
So your members would not have to pay for that. So that's great news. I will say, and you're familiar with this, there's been data centers that have been wanting to move to the Ocala area, but one of the big stopping points is you need a very large body of water to provide them.
Right.
So I talked to a couple of clients and we're really worried about these data centers and we don't really know what they're all about. We're just worried about our electric bills going up and all that kind of stuff. If a data center comes in here, those costs don't get passed on to your members, do they?
If done correctly, they don't.
Okay.
And that's how Seco has set up our structure so that does not happen.
What are your thoughts on artificial intelligence in the energy world?
Well, they come hand in glove. Of course, we're talking about the data centers, which is artificial intelligence. It's what's driving the data centers. But let's talk about the use of artificial intelligence. And it's almost a double-edged sword because as a business, I'm sure you're using it. And
yes,
I haven't talked to many people who are not. Even when they don't know they're using it, they're using it. I like Spotify. And they're using artificial intelligence because they're tracking the kind of music I typically listen to. And then they create these playlists, they come up out of nowhere. I love them.
They're great.
They're great. So that's artificial intelligence that's happening behind the scenes, even when we don't even ask it to do anything. So it is becoming a way of life as well as a way of doing business. So you ask about Seco Energy, are we using artificial intelligence? You bet. Mm-hmm. We're setting some governing principles around what we use it for, how we use it, and we're very sensitive to going too far with it. We are a people-oriented business, and we don't want artificial intelligence taking the place of our very trained, highly skilled customer service, member service representatives who talk to our members and solve their problems. We don't want to relinquish that service to artificial intelligence. But let me give you an example of how we're enhancing that. When every call that comes into Seco Energy, we document it, okay? And our representatives listen to what our members are saying, and after that call is over, they have to spend a few minutes to document what was just said, because they could call back in 2 days, and we want to make sure they don't have to start from zero. That's just good customer service, which I know you're very, very much.
Yes.
That's just what you do.
That's what I do.
So here's what artificial intelligence can do. We record calls when they come in. Artificial intelligence could listen to that call and summarize that conversation for us in a matter of seconds. Mm-hmm. And all our customer service person, member service person has to do is review that versus take the 5 minutes to type it up and do it themselves. They could review it in 30 seconds.
Right.
That's 4.5 minutes saved by using artificial intelligence. Those are the kinds of things that we're doing is to enhance and enable our humans to do more and do things more efficiently and more effectively. So that's the approach that we're taking at Seco.
Yeah, saving 4 minutes times 20 calls
or
in one day.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
person.
No, it's more like 200, 300 calls per day. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And it converts to more attention we can pay, we can give to that member, and that representative not feeling like they have to rush to get on the call. They could tell them more about this thermostat program that they could help them save dollars. I'd rather them spend time promoting things that we could help our members with to save on their rising cost of electricity than to have to sit and type notes.
Yeah. Artificial intelligence, it's ChatGPT, right?
Yep.
Grok, Gemini, name it. You got to get on top of it because it's here to stay and it continues to grow, and every company should be using it. Even a retiree or a young person should be practicing and using it just one little step at a time, because you will be left behind.
Yeah. And that sort of brings it full circle when you think about that. So we're encouraging our listeners to use it, but what drives it?
Energy, data centers.
Data centers, right? So what have we done here?
So you guys hear that we need $1 billion to get another. Oh, I'm just kidding. And here's the thing. It's here and it's not stopping.
No,
so
it's not.
There has to be solutions. There's a will, there's a way. There's always a solution.
Right.
And just tapping into the solution. And this modular data center compact strategy might very well be one. It's just getting it done faster, getting it up and rolling faster. So I know there's a lot of people who are excited out there about artificial intelligence. I know there's a lot of people out there who's like, I want nothing to do with it, and I'm just not going down that direction, and it's going to, ruin our world. And, I don't know the outlook, right?
Yeah, that's just a smart approach. The modular approach is, we haven't really, I'll share a little bit about that. It's just that when you want to put it all in one place as a data center, huge, and again, I call it the hyperscale data center. It creates that huge drain on the system. However, if you look at it from a modular approach where you're looking at smaller data centers that can capitalize or utilize the existing excess capacity that we have at Seco Energy, which we have certain times of the day, and in certain places, we have capacity, but we've got to be smart in placing smaller data centers in those areas.
Interesting.
Versus trying to put a huge data center to cover everything.
Yeah.
And that is a more efficient way to utilize what we currently have. And that could impact the way we run our business. It could really make us more efficient. I used the truck analogy during the conversation we had in terms of most utilities are driving, if you compare it to a truck, you're moving and transporting goods with a half full truck. And that's typically how utilities have to operate today, because you don't want to fill that truck up too much because you never know when that one spike is going to come that's going to make you hit tilt. Those are the terms I use. So there's a way, I think, coming on the horizon that we can, with this modular data center compact, that we can fill that truck up to 3/4 of the way full, which makes it more efficient to run from point A to point B.
Right. No, it makes sense to me. Just making sure you have control of it, I think, is the biggest part.
Right.
So we probably won't run out of electricity in 5 years, you're saying, because people are on target with potential solutions. So that's good news, because that'll scare the tar out of just about anybody. You know, Curtis, I want to make sure as we conclude here, like we hit everything that you think is really important, because, you know, we talked about inflation and affordability, infrastructure, you know, artificial intelligence, data centers are potentially coming our way here in Central North Florida. Your amazing foundations that help other foundations and companies. Is there anything I missed?
No, if I had to just reemphasize anything, I don't think we've missed anything. I just really want to speak again. We talked at length about the affordability concerns for your clients, for our members at Seco Energy. I think engagement, if I could leave one takeaway, that is ask our members to engage and to take advantage of things that we're putting in place, like the smart thermostat program, where we are adjusting those thermostats at certain times without causing any discomfort. And if you are one of those electric vehicle chargers, charging off peak.
Right.
Because, you know, you mentioned about what if everybody purchased one? Well, the stats show that of all of those owners, most of the charging is done at home. So plug it in, put a timer on it so that it doesn't charge on peak.
Right.
Simple.
Don't charge it between 4 and 8 p.m.
Exactly.
Or
exactly.
7 and 9 a.m.
Right.
Okay.
And then that's because during those valley times, I call them valley times, you got more capacity. So that's another way to engage. Or if you're super conservative in terms of how you want to make sure your power is never off, you have a battery system in your home. Some of the consumers out there have purchased these battery walls that you can charge them off peak. And if you want to use them on peak, just use that as a resource that the utility can take advantage of.
Interesting.
So those are the type of engagement things, and just making sure you take advantage of energy audits, making sure you're not using electricity that's not beneficial to you. That if there are appliances that are using way too much electricity, the higher the cost of electricity is, the worse that helps. And there are ways to help reduce those unnecessary costs. Let's figure out how to do that together.
Got it. I love it. Yeah. So saving because of affordability is kicking our rears in electricity.
Right.
I'm going to be cautious of when I turn on my electric now, lights and AC, power it up before it gets to the high point. And that should help with costs. So that's good news. Well, Curtis, I appreciate you being here. Can I tell you all that Curtis came to the Ocala Leadership Conference we had here in January? He was one of our main sponsors, and he had his team. He had like 30 people. This is how big of a deal culture and grooming the leadership team at Seco Energy is to him. And he had them all there, and he was a big sponsor. And we're just so thankful, number one. And 30 people. You had people coming from Tampa, all over the place. So
yes.
I'm just impressed with that. And between you and Advent, I mean, you guys are almost tied up with how many people you had there, which was incredible.
That's good company.
Leadership.
That's good company to be in. Advent is a very well-run organization. So to be in that in the same category with them, that's awesome. But it just says what we, if I can put a plug in about what we at Seco Energy, when we don't just say our people are our greatest resource, we got to put action behind that. So making those types of investments is going to pay itself off. You will not believe just the reaction that everybody's come back with. They've come to me and thanked me for you and all of the folks who put that together doing it. That is an amazing asset to this region. So I say back at you, to you guys who put this together and let you know how much we appreciate it. And we'll be back the next time.
Awesome. Yeah, we had a great team there. And for those who are listening, it was where we brought John Maxwell and John Gordon, Ryan Lake, all these top speakers around the country come in just to share, how to grow your team. So and the Ocala Leadership Conference, that's Chester Weber, Pastor Mark, Church of Hope, Corinne and Brian Corciola, and just the amazing team we have putting this together. So we're just all happy that everybody was happy about it. So I will tell you, number one leader here, one of my best leaders in this area, Curtis Wynn. I appreciate your time. Hey, if you want to follow up and learn more about him, you can also go to, he has his own podcast called Power Chat in the Electric Lounge.
Yes.
I listened to it and some good information there. So anybody who's looking to get more information, you can Google that and find that as well. And you can also go to secoenergy.com to check out everything else they have going on. So again, thank you so much for coming today. And we appreciate all the feedback. And you've taken all my fears away about electricity disappearing in 5 years.
Sharice, glad to be here. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
You are welcome.
Special thanks to Curtis Wynn for joining us on Retirement Coffee Talk. And as always, as Sharice says, live by design and not by default. And we'll see you next week.
This has been Retirement Coffee Talk. To find out more about how the strategies we've discussed on this program can build the retirement you've been wanting, call Zinnia Wealth at 352-368-3680 or visit us online at zinniawealth.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC, a registered investment advisor. The firm only conducts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded from registration requirements. Registration is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. Insurance products are offered through Zinnia Wealth Management, LLC, Florida license L078655, and Sharice Rivers, Florida license P037744. Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC, and Zinnia Wealth Management, LLC are affiliated entities. The information presented is believed to be current. It should not be viewed as personalized investment advice. All expressions of opinion reflect the judgment of the presenter on the date of the podcast and are subject to change. The information presented is not an offer to buy or sell or a solicitation of any offer to buy or sell any of the securities discussed. You should consult with a professional advisor before implementing any of the strategies discussed. Any legal or tax information provided in this podcast is general in nature. Always consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation. Any client experience discussed on this show are unique to that client. Annuity and life insurance guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. If you withdraw money from or surrender your contract within a certain time after investing, the insurance company may assess a surrender charge. Withdrawals may be subject to tax penalties and income taxes. Persons selling annuities or other insurance products receive compensation for these transactions. These commissions are separate and distinct from fees charged for advisory services. Insurance products also contain additional fees and expenses. Social Security rules and regulations are subject to change at any time. Always consult with your local Social Security office before acting upon any information provided herein. References to specific investments should not be construed as being past specific recommendations. The returns for various indices discussed in this podcast do not represent the performance of the firm or any of its advisory clients. Returns do not reflect the impact that advisory fees will have on an investment. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. All investment strategies have potential for profit or loss. Different types of investments involve higher and lower levels of risk. There is no guarantee that a specific investment strategy will be suitable or profitable for an investor's portfolio. Historical performance returns for investment indexes and or categories usually do not deduct transaction and or custodial charges or advisory fees, which would decrease historical performance results. There are no guarantees that a portfolio will match or outperform a specific benchmark. Investments in fixed income products are subject to liquidity risk, market risk, index rate risk, credit risk, inflation risk, purchasing power risk, and taxation risk. Because bond prices fluctuate continually, their yields change constantly.